Welcome to Indie Business Club, the podcast for independent creatives, freelancers, founders and business owners. She's Mel Barfield.
And he's Ben McKinney, and we're copywriters and business owners sharing tips and advice we've picked up along the way. This episode is called All These Things That I've Done, and it's all about showing off your work. On the show, we'll discuss whether you need a portfolio, how to show off your work when you aren't really allowed to, creative ways to show off what you do, and we've also got a voice note from an expert on today's theme and your friend and mine, where we highlight a person in our network we think is great. Ben, do you have a portfolio?
No.
Me neither.
Well, sort of.
Maybe we're not qualified to have this conversation.
Do you know what? I've always struggled to show off my work, and I actually think it has really held me back at times. When I retrained as a freelance copywriter and was trying to put myself out there just on social media, really, it was Twitter in those days.
R.I.P.
Yeah, I do miss those early days of Twitter. I definitely enjoyed the camaraderie that came from kind of connecting with everybody in the industry on there. LinkedIn just isn't quite the same. Let's not get sidetracked by LinkedIn. I really struggled to put together a portfolio because the work I was getting in was so piecemeal, and it was varied in a way, but most of it was just kind of blog posts. And actually all I was doing was providing a Word document with like a 300 word article that was pretty heavily SEO based. That was a lot of my early work. And not only did I think it wasn't very good, I didn't think it looked very good, and I never really could work out how the best way to present it. And I think I took the view at the time as well that a website would be more important. If I got myself established and got a proper website which looked good and read really well, that was probably a better example of the way I wrote. For Copy or Die, we have a deck that we send with proposals that we put kind of like past projects on. And then we have loads of different past projects, and we include the most relevant ones to the potential client that we're sending it to. So that is kind of a portfolio.
It's kind of a micro portfolio.
Yeah, we don't have one then that we keep online. And again, I think we've taken the view that a website with some really good case studies and presentation of our work on there is probably a better way for us. But yeah, I don't know. What about you? Have you got one?
I do not have one, and I only get asked about twice a year, if that. And so that hasn't made me... But every time I do, I then... So there was one just the other week. There was a well-known brand put a call out for freelancers, and normally we've talked about this before, how annoying it is when people put out a call for freelancers. But this one was quite genuine and responded very well to all the interest they got. And the task was to fill in this little type form. And I was like, diddly-dee, da-da-da-da-da. Get to the point where it goes, please upload your portfolio. And I was like, nuts. I'll have to come back to that because I don't have one, and I'll have to put stuff together. And I never did. So there's an opportunity lost, opportunity missed. But as I say, for me, I think because I have built up a personal brand reputation, whatever you want to call it, people are kind of pre-qualified before they ask me about work quite often, because I've operated on almost entirely inbound. But then I think, well, what am I missing by not having one? It should be something that for anyone that's doing any kind of creative work, I think it is important to have one. And maybe this is one of those things where we set ourselves some homework that we then don't end up doing. So what I've done in the past, if I've been asked for stuff, is I've just bundled a load of things in, bundled like examples of work into a Google Drive folder, and then just sent them the link to that. But that's not very exciting. That's not very creative. And we're going to talk later about some people's portfolios that are exciting and are creative, and we'll link to them all in the show notes so people can have a little nosy. But yeah, that's. I feel like we've both come into this that we don't really have one, but we know the value. And you, as an agency owner, you know that you want to see examples of work. So it's important to you that people have, maybe you don't call it a portfolio, but have some evidence that they can write words good. Yeah,
that's the angle that I come in at it from. And I've seen some really good ones recently with people that have approached us wanting to kind of go on the roster of writers that we use at Copy or Die and actually sharing the portfolio. And the ones that are good really do stand out, and it does then make it a lot easier for me when kind of putting people into projects, it does make it a lot easier to think, oh, I know I can trust this person, which is an interesting, when we were kind of thinking about the planning for the show, because I don't have my own and I never really had one, I was thinking about what actually you get from one. And from the other side of things, you do get a level of trust that you're giving work to somebody with a safe pair of hands. You mentioned about most of your leads are inbound, and we've talked about that on the show before, how from your social media activity, all of the leads that you've got have just come to you, which is incredible. And I think that probably explains for both of us why we've never really gone ahead and had one. Because
maybe LinkedIn is my portfolio, Ben.
Well, exactly. And this is the thing, isn't it? Like, I think it depends on the route that you take into the type of industry that you're working in. So the disclaimer is always that we're both copywriters, and the kind of the examples that we have will be based around writing projects, but the principles should kind of cross over to other industries too. But I think for us, we both came into the industry a bit later. And we both kind of forced our own way in a way, didn't we? We didn't start at an agency. We didn't kind of get that level of training or background where we could say, oh, I worked on this project, or I worked on this project, I worked on this project, which you could then put together into a portfolio and take with you wherever you then went. I think
we don't have a book. People call it a book.
No, exactly. For
sometimes.
both of us coming in as a freelancer, it was very much just a case of let's grab this job here, let's grab this one there. And like I say, the ones I managed to grab first, it's going to sound terrible, I wasn't particularly proud to work on them and then show them off.
That doesn't sound terrible. I think we've got relate to that.
We've got other kind of things that might get in the way later, and we'll get onto those later. But certainly in those early days, it was just a case of I wanted any kind of exposure to any kind of job, and I took the ones that came. And I was like, oh, I can't.
This is naff.
It wasn't even shown off. Yeah, it wasn't me producing my best work. It was just me producing work for this particular client as a way of getting in.
And if they need SEO copy, then that's not very exciting.
It's hard to show that off.
If you crowbarred in some keywords and.
Oh, I crowbarred in lots of keywords into those first few months of work.
And, like
and even later.
Go on.
Just like even later on, when you're again in those early days when work is coming in, the way I presented work has developed over time, and it really kind of properly developed when I started working with Dave on a regular basis.
He's just an inspiration.
It was working with somebody with much more experience and thinking, oh, I've never presented my work in that way. And one of the ways then to get around one of the kind of roadblocks that you might find of people changing your work when it goes online, or the way they present it, is then if it's presented in a nice way, you've kind of got it then to snip and put in your portfolio as you intended it, as you created it. So it's kind of an honest version that you've put forward, rather than the client changed version or it being cut down or whatever.
I like what you said though about, I know that we worked on a deck just yesterday for Copy or Die proposal deck, and the part about only including the most relevant work. So I previously worked as a careers advisor. I've helped many a person with their CV in the past, and that is something a lot of people don't bother doing, is tailoring the CV for the exact job that they're actually applying for with at any moment in time. And I think that's very sensible to do with your portfolio as well. So if somebody's looking for if it's someone that wants a logo and you're a graphic designer, then don't send over your portfolio that has one logo and 10 website designs on. Make sure that you're tailoring it to what they're asking for and putting in the best examples of that particular type of work, so they can really imagine themselves working with you.
Yeah, and there's ways of doing that even if you haven't had those type of projects, but those are the ones you want, aren't there?
Spec work.
You talk a lot about spec work, and it's not something I ever really did in the early days of freelancing, but I absolutely can see the value of it. And it's a bit like that expression, isn't it? Did you ever get told the expression when you had a proper job? Dress for the job you want, not the job you're doing. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that in a way, isn't it? In terms of like, well, I'm getting in. So I never did it, and that was partly because I was running two businesses. But I felt very early on, I'm not getting the type of jobs I want to do, and I probably should have just bought myself a little bit of time and put that kind of spec work together for the type of jobs that I wanted.
We dress for the job we want now, don't we? Because we're both in shorts and t-shirt today.
I'm an all year round shorts kind of guy.
He's a shorts guy.
So what goes into a good portfolio? What do you reckon?
Well, one thing that I would say this about CVs as well. Make sure you've got your contact details really clearly on there, on every page. Put it in the header or footer, because this is more a CV thing, but I can see it happening with portfolios as well. If somebody's printing load of stuff off to take into a meeting where everyone's going to be poring over the same things, and if a particular page stands out and they take it out of your main bundle and it doesn't have your contact details on, you're just adding a little bit of extra friction or a potential obstacle to them being able to get in touch with you. So put your contact details on every single page, not huge, just a little footer. And we put in the notes here, show don't tell. So that's a great rule in life in general, to show off your work instead of saying I did this piece of work. If you can actually show the work, then that helps. I know that's not always possible, but yeah, examples of your work with some personality as well. And we've got a voice note for today that goes into this a bit more. Do you want to go a bit more into what should go into a portfolio, and then we'll listen to the voice note?
I think so. Yeah, I think because that'll set the voice note up nicely. I think the good ones that I've seen recently have had proper structure. It's not just been kind of work plonked on each individual page. They've almost told a bit of a story. A flow. Yeah, absolutely. The contact details thing, I think that's probably a good one, because I don't ever tend to print them off and then sit around the table discussing them with anybody. Because we work remotely, it is all online anyway, and you might share the whole thing. But actually having the contact details on each individual page, if somebody, we're just talking about, often in the creative industries, we're talking about one little thing making a spark, don't we, or making a connection.
You're like, ooh, yeah, I like this.
And it might be that there's one little thing in your portfolio which just hits the right note for the right person at the right time. So if they pull that one page out and share it with colleagues or people on, a creative team, making sure you've got your contact details on each page is really important. I think that's a good one. Not one that I'd thought of before as well. I think one of the things that I was thinking of as well is that in the age of social media, often I'll get in a portfolio or an application from somebody who I recognise or know from social media. And broadly, that's a good thing. But what I think I'm looking for in the portfolio is to kind of fill in the gaps that the social media has left. So often people will talk about personal stuff on social media, obviously, and professional stuff as well. But there are kind of then gaps in the two things, which a portfolio can be a little bit more revealing and go a little bit deeper. I think that's important too.
I think it's really important that it's an easy format. So you said about having it have a little bit of a flow, a narrative flow. I think it's great if you can, and this is what I used to do, is make people click in and out of stuff, open one thing, close it, open another thing. Don't do that. People are lazy. People don't want to have to keep clicking all over the place. Try and make it as fluid an experience as possible, so people can look through, navigate it easily, but not have to kind of come in and out of different documents. This is very much a do as we say, not as we do episode, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it is, but I think it's... I think, like you said, this will give us some homework. And we've said this before, we don't come to this podcast saying that we have all the answers and we know.
We definitely don't say that.
We're not talking about everything from actual lived experience with all of it. We are learning as we go with this as well, aren't we? And even as creatives and people in the creative industry, I still feel really new, and I still feel like there's so much I don't know about. From when people from an agency background talk, I feel like, oh wow, I've never even considered stuff like that. I don't know. I haven't come from that experience. We haven't
filled a timesheet in our lives.
I think one of the things that we've got down on the list that might be difficult if you're a freelancer and not somebody who's coming from agency land is evidence of not just the work that you've done. So not just putting up the nice pictures of the work that you've created, but also putting a bit of what the return on investment for the customer was, or what the reaction was to the work. I find that continually hard to get. Even now, building Copy or Die with you and with Dave, I find it continually hard to get really good feedback from the client as to what the work did after we delivered it. And it's kind of built into the process to touch base. But even with the best will in the world, it's hard to get that information because the project finishes, the client moves on, they're busy. and you're there going, hey, can we just grab 5 minutes to talk about what happened?
And sometimes that's something that they won't want to revel anyway. They won't
Absolutely,
necessarily
yeah.
want that to be public.
But if you
then
can
also
get some
you
of
have to have
that
that
information,
baseline from the start as well. So you have to build it in from. You can't. It's not just something to do at the end. You have to do it right at the beginning to make sure you've got a benchmark to then compare against.
But if you can get some of that information, putting that in the portfolio, we've had a couple recently where they've given really a good indication of what the campaign in this situation did. And it's not always massively relevant, because I suppose, like with anything, you can make stats, you know, if you don't give the context of the stats.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they can
context
kind of say whatever they
is everything,
want.
isn't it?
But in this
it might
case,
be like
it was
2%,
really useful.
and it's 2% might sound small, but actually for them it was massive. You know, you need a bit.
The
of
one I'm
context
thinking
behind
it. Gave us the target of the campaign and then what the campaign actually did. So that was really useful to see how they kind of outperformed what they needed to. I think if you can give all of those things, just make them stand out a bit more rather than just a nice, like you called it, your book. And that's great to show off the work. But if you can give a little bit more of that context, you're just making it easier again for the person to think, okay, I've given this job to a really safe pair of hands if I pass it on to this person.
Yeah, and if you can have a well-placed, even if it's just one line testimonial or quote from a client, then that helps as well. To build that social proof that you've been trusted by others and therefore you should be trusted again. Can we play the voice note now? Because it's one of my favourites ever.
Mine too. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Today's voice note is from long-time friend of the show, copywriter and poet Gemma Strang. I first met Gem at the Women in Marketing Awards, where we were both shortlisted, and I immediately loved her. She's a true creative with that effervescent kind of brain, and it comes through in her portfolio. I've raved about it to loads of people, so she was an obvious choice for today's voice note. Here's what she had to say.
Hello, Mel and Ben. And Ant, I wouldn't forget you. I'm so bloody chuffed to be on here. I've listened since day one. Thank you for having me. So, I'm here to talk about portfolios. And my advice, whether you're starting from scratch or going back to give yours a bit of a zhuzh, is be the youest you. You need to show your work, sure, but you need to show yourself. If you're in marketing, you already know the amazing power of emotion to sell stuff and make brands memorable. So why don't we apply this stuff we know to ourselves? If our portfolios make someone feel something, they're going to remember you. So talk about your life outside of work. Talk about your kids, your pet. Tell a story. Show a little slice of your internal world. A recruiter or client, I think, is way more likely to remember the person it feels like they've just had a cup of tea with when they've looked through their portfolio. Now, I use Google Slides to show my work, which is a little bit unusual. It was only ever meant to be a stopgap when I went freelance. I'd just come off the back of 6 years working at agencies. I think I sort of dreamt in Google Slides at that point. But it actually offers quite a collagey, zine quality to my portfolio that really works for my vibe. So in there, I show my work. I talk about what I do when I slam my laptop shut, gardening, watching weird TV shows, going to therapy. I've got a slide for my poetry. That's a really big part of my life and increasingly my work life, so I want to get that in there. I've got a slide for my top 5 favourite words, which I update regularly. And I decorate it all with Giphy stickers to make things move in subtle ways that just makes it feel a bit like more of an experience, and it's got more personality to it. And I get feedback on this all the time, and work most importantly, which is wonderful. So my stopgap weird mini portfolio has sort of become the permanent thing. Now, wherever you host your portfolio, my big advice to you is don't be afraid to show the human behind the work. Be the youest you. And send me a link when you're done, because I want to have a look. Thank you. Bye.
Ben, what's your favourite word?
A spatula. That's a nice one to say. I find spatula really satisfying to say.
Spatula.
I like the word alacrity. And when I was a junior news reporter, I used to try and get the word adroit. I don't know why. I think I'd read it in either a book or a news
Adroit
report.
feels like a very grown-up word to say, doesn't it?
Yeah, I used to try and get it means kind of skilled. I think particularly skilled with your hands. I used to try and get that into sports reports mainly. It was harder to get into a news report. What about you? Have you got a top 5 favourite words?
I don't have a top 5, but I have a fondness for the word floxinaucinihilipilification because my English teacher taught us how to spell it. It is the act of judging something worthless, and I can still remember how to spell it, but I won't do it. I definitely won't do it using
Don't do it with the phonetic alphabet.
that'll be us done till like midnight. But yeah, that's it's just one of those silly things that is stuck in my brain, and he was a good teacher. I miss him.
Anyway, Gem.
Back to Gemma.
Gem,
thank you.
We are so bloody chuffed to have you as a voice noter.
Yeah,
so thank you for that.
The honour is ours.
That is one of my favourite ones we've had.
Yeah, and we'll put links in the show notes to Gemma's LinkedIn profile and also to her incredible portfolio, so you can have that magic moment of going ooh as you look through. What did
it's
you
a
like
really
about
good one.
Voice Note?
Well, I was just going to say about the portfolio. It's such a good one, and it's a really good one. It's one of the. I wish I'd seen it when I was new, because I feel like it would have given me kind of like the inspiration to create my own and to be really creative with it and to try and show work off in a really cool way. So it's well worth looking at if you're a freelancer or if you're somebody that needs a portfolio. I would definitely have a look at that.
For inspiration, not to copy her ideas, though.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Because you've got to be the youest you, not the youest or the gemmerest you. You need to make sure that you're. That was one of the things that Gem said is make it really personal to yourself, so that it gets that bit of personality across to people.
Yeah, and I
talking
think
about life outside work as well.
Yeah, and I think if I'd taken that advice, kind of when I was younger and when I was thinking about putting a portfolio together, actually that would have informed what I put in anyway. So I would have almost certainly then ignored the work that I was doing, and really thought about using it as this is who I am and this is what I want to be or what I want to write, and kind of go down that road, like we said, of spec work. And we should probably just define spec work, because we mention it a lot, but I don't think we ever really talk about exactly what it is. So should we just say that quickly? When
we were on the marketing meetup webinar, which we'll link to in the show notes because we want as many people as possible to see it, talking about freelancing, I used the word spec work, and someone in the comments was like, what's that program Mel just mentioned? They thought it was like a platform or a bit of software. Spec work is speculative work. I'm assuming it's short for speculative. That's what it kind of means. It's where you create something based on your own brief. It's not something that's been set for you by a proper, for want of a better term, client. It's something that you can just create, because you're free to do that. You know, there's no rules. You can just create something. So you see quite often on LinkedIn there'll be spec adverts that people have created. You could make up a little brief of, I'm going to design a logo for a haulage company that has a mascot of a turtle. You know, you can just set yourself a random brief. And actually, there was a writing brief shared by a friend of the show, Lee James, that gives you, it's like a prompt generator, not a ChatGPT AI prompt generator. We'll link to that in the show notes, because that's for creative writing. That can it literally gives you like the first line of some creative writing, and you just free flow and have, you know, you can use that as your story idea if you're a writer and you want to create some spec work. But the beauty of it is that you don't have to have been given that brief by a client. You can just do your dream brief. You can just do it. And your friend of mine, Dan Nelkin, has said before that agencies and clients and stuff, they just want to see how your brain works. Mm-hmm. That's what they want. They want to see how your brain works. And yeah, there might be some that will be like, well, we don't really consider spec work in a portfolio, but the vast majority probably will accept that that's, you know, as long as you're not pretending that you did a massive social media campaign for McDonald's and you're fibbing, just make it clear that it's spec work. But yeah, it's definitely a great way to make your portfolio full of stuff that you want to be doing and that you like doing.
Yeah, so I think that really goes along with the be the youest you point. And then kind of towards the end of the voice note, she said about people are most likely to remember the person. She said that they feel like they've had a cup of tea with. But I think that being memorable, we talk about it all the time in the way that we present ourselves on social media and everything. if you're pitching yourself or you're sending your portfolio to a client or a creative agency, they're probably going to get loads of them. You want yours to be the one that stands out and to be the one that is memorable. So that's the thing I think that I would take away from that.
Yeah, and she also mentioned, Jem said that she used Google Slides because that's what she's so used to using. For me, it would definitely be Canva, but I've never thought to do that. And in fact, we've got an example later on by Kane Lewis that we'll link to in the show notes, and his is in Canva, and it has that lovely flow that we said about, you know, the fluidity. So don't go picking a platform that you think you should use for it if you're not familiar with it and you're going to make a bit of a hash of it. Lean into your strengths, which is what your portfolio should be all about. And one last thing that Jem said was that her portfolio was just a stopgap solution, but actually it's evolved into one of her most potent marketing tools. So that's got to be a lesson of just shut up and start doing it. Stop procrastinating. Get something out there.
Right. There's a couple of roadblocks that we thought about that might get in the way if you're trying to present your work in a portfolio. This is for work that you might have already done for a client. So we're not talking about spec work here. But they are, firstly, if you have to sign an NDA in your work, so a non-disclosure agreement with your client, how do you then show off your skills or show off the things that you've been able to create and show off the things that you've been able to develop? And also then, secondly, if a client, which this happens to kind of people in our industry all the time.
Too many people this happens to.
If the client butchers your work, for want of a better expression, before it goes live. So in our case, we present a lovely piece of creative writing, or some taglines or headlines, and the client's team maybe changes a word or two here or there, or cuts something.
They get cold feet about the nice, bold
absolutely, yeah,
voice that they'd agreed.
Trouble is, then when it's on the website, do you then want to say proudly, "Oh, we did this," or "I did this"? So that's a difficult one. Let's take NDAs first. So what if your work is all under an NDA? How can you show off your skills there?
Well, just check the fine print for a start, because people hear NDA and think, I can't ever talk about it at all. Yeah. You can probably still, for example, like write a case study about it, just using vaguish language. You can be really specific about the impact that you had and how you approached the work and your process without revealing any, sue-worthy details that'll get you in trouble. Often it's okay to show the work on a live Zoom call. I've asked and been told that that's fine before. So if you're having a discovery call with a potential client, you can often it's often permissible for you to just share your screen and show it, as long as it's not kind of going anywhere else and it's not being recorded by the prospective client. So there are ways around it, but yeah, just ask permission. Still talk about it, but just anonymize what you need to anonymize, and also build some wording into your contract or agreement at the beginning that clarifies how you will, so I've done it before where I've said something along the lines of, I'm aware due to the nature of this that I'm not able to share specifics, however I will share that I've been working with you. I'll name your brand and say I've been working with you. Then that'll be pre-agreed. So if they're like, it's under NDA, I'll be like, but can I say that I'm working with you at least? And sometimes that'll be a yes, sometimes it won't be. So make sure you have that conversation early on so you can protect yourself with a little bit of not a clause, nothing as serious as a clause in the agreement, but just kind of refer to whatever you've agreed. If you've agreed to some level of being able to share it or speak about it, then just cover yourself. We are not legal advisors. Please seek professional advice if you've got any questions. I don't want to. That's just a little disclaimer to cover our back.
I think that's worth saying. I'd say go back to the person that you're dealing with and ask permission. It may be that if they've given you a contract that specifically mentions an NDA, it may be that it's under NDA until it's live. It may be that it has an expiration date because the campaign kind of drifts into the background. It may be that it's a really old contract, or it comes from somebody that used to work there, and the person that you're dealing with,
or it's a boilerplate thing.
Yeah, exactly. One might not have any problem with you sharing it. It's worth shooting that shot, I think, rather than just saying, just looking at it and thinking, I can't share any of this, because we talk so much about how in the creative world, you put so much of yourself into a project, whether you're a designer, if you're doing graphics, if you're creating a website, if you're writing, you put so much of yourself into that. And often it's like getting a byline in a newspaper, I suppose. You feel so proud when your work goes live, don't you? It's something that you want to talk about. And obviously there are times when clients will insist on it and you just won't be able to get around it. But I think it's worth trying, not even pushing the boundaries with it, but just trying to see whether it's something that you could share. Yeah, just ask him.
Yeah, it helps me loads if I can show off the work I've done. Like, that really helps me to bring in more clients in future. So do you make sure you're just, they'll understand. They'll understand why you're asking. They're not going to suddenly not work with you because of it. But yeah, as I say, there's ways of presenting it without breaking. It doesn't mean you literally can't say anything ever. And I think a lot of people assume that that's what it means, and actually it's not. But there's also, moving on from NDAs, you mentioned the client butchering the work. I know Dave has, actually loads of copywriters back in the day when there was Content Club UK on Twitter. I remember lots of people mentioning this, that if, say, a client has squiffed your words up before it's gone live on their website, say you've done some web copy. This is specifically for, again, we're going into copywriter territory. But there's some kind of JavaScript plugin-y thing. I don't know. We don't know the technical term, but there are some ways. Google it. You'll find out. How you can adjust the words on screen and then do a screen grab and save it, or save the page as a PDF and that kind of thing. So if it has been, if you've got that, what have they done to my beautiful boy? Then you can kind of make a fake version that's got your actual words in and screen grab that for posterity. Yeah,
and I mentioned earlier about thinking about the way that you present work. So in those early days when I was just writing blog posts for people, I would literally just send them a Word document with the title at the top and then kind of my 300 words or 600 or 800 words. I never wanted to share that in a portfolio anyway. But actually now if we're thinking about doing website copy, it's much easier in the document to present it nicely and to put the headline in a kind of bigger H1 type font and to almost set it out how it would appear on the website, maybe put some graphics. I'm not a designer by any means. You're pretty good at this. Dave's good at it too. But then
Dave
looks
is
nice.
Surprisingly good with the Adobe suite.
But then it's nice and easy then to clip that and put it into a portfolio, regardless of what the client does to it by the time it gets on their website.
And make sure you save your own copies, because if you're working in a shared folder, then your access to that could potentially be like whipped from under you. I mean,
I've fallen foul of that a few times.
Have you? Oh no.
Yeah. I've done, and even I used to overwrite stuff as well. So I did one project and it didn't end ever so well, but I remember the second draft of something I did. I remember being super proud of it, and the client didn't want it. And I remember at the time thinking, I know where I can use this somewhere else. It was either on my own stuff or I just had a good idea.
Like, these are good words.
I was going to take it away and kind of keep it in a little bank. But then when everything came in, it had all been overwritten and I hadn't saved an individual copy of it all. So we talk about my tech issues far too much on this show, but that's one that I really regret, because I know I can't remember it, but I remember really liking what I'd done and the route it was going. And the idea was kind of squashed, which was fine. That was their prerogative. But I remember kind of wishing I could have taken it away and built on it myself and either used it for another client or
these are the lessons we learn.
Too. Yeah,
the lessons that we learn. You won't do it again.
I won't. Because I can't remember it.
Because you can't remember it.
Okay, I think it's time for your favourite part of the show, Mel. And this time, our friend of the show is photographer Wendy Gannon. Wendy is the Queen of Angles, a personality-led photographer and consultant for unapologetic female founders. Some time ago on LinkedIn, a man very publicly told women that to be successful, they needed to wear tops up to their necks and look classy. And so in response...
That's where I'm going wrong, Ben. That's where I'm going wrong.
Well, amongst the backlash, in response, Wendy launched a Kickstarter called Female 5 Million. which grew to a photography series, a book, and an exhibition to show that women can earn big money without sticking to out-of-date beauty and fashion standards. She is an absolute force of nature, and you can find her on LinkedIn and read more about the project at female5million.com. We'll put both of those links into the show notes. And she's today's friend of the show.
Ben, let's wrap up about portfolios. What do the ones that you love have in common? Let's do a little recap on that. They're different, they stand out, they show the personality.
Yeah, all of those things. I think obviously quality subjective, but I think I love, especially with design, I love those ideas which are so simple, they kind of hit you in the face and make you think, oh wow, how come I didn't think of that? And
yeah.
Those really good portfolios that I've seen over the past couple of months, I think we've been getting a few in from different people over the last couple of months. So we mentioned obviously Gemma's, you mentioned Kane Lewis. Kane's another writer. His portfolio is excellent. His gives a lot of that context that we talked about. So you see kind of the results of the work that he's put out with the various clients that he's done. Sarah Herman is somebody, she's local to me in Norwich, and she sent an amazing portfolio through recently for her work. Yeah, I think they've got that. They've just got that something different about them. They're not just putting work flat on some pages. They are showing, not telling, and really showing their creativity.
Yeah, I just want to shout out, it's not a portfolio, but it is a really incredible website that, that like, oh, I wish I'd thought of that. It's Joe Coleman, and he has, you have to go and see it really. I don't know if I can describe it.
It's hard to describe it.
Do it justice. It basically shows the ramping up and down of copywriting and salesy principles. So it's got a little thing you could toggle that you can move up and down across a line. And it's one of the most awesome websites I've ever seen. It's getcoleman.com, Coleman with an E in the middle. We'll put a link in the show notes. And we've got a few other examples of cool or interesting portfolios that we'll link to in the show notes as well, including, of course, Gemma Strang's.
One thing I just want to finish off by saying, something that definitely kind of held me back right at the start was I really got dragged into what I thought a portfolio should look like. So I never made one, but I did start a couple of times trying to put work together and think about how I present it. But yeah, I was really held back and restricted by this idea of what does a portfolio look like? What should mine look like? But like I've said, the ones that really stand out are the ones that don't look like the others. So again, we're all in a creative industry. It's that showing that creativity and making it look different to everybody else's. I think that's the last thing I'd leave it on.
I'd just reiterate as well what Jem said about just start it, because you can have your stopgap portfolio. Just create anything, even if it's not finished. Start putting it out there, and then it'll evolve over time.
And that'll do for today. If you're enjoying the show, there are a few ways that you can support us. Connect with us on Instagram and gram us. Do people say this?
No, they don't say that. Gram us. I was about to say, well
maybe
done.
They should.
You've stopped calling it Instantgram. It's at Indie Business Club Pod.
Send us a picture or a video. Reel us in.
Hey.
Sorry.
You should be.
I'm thrilled we're on Instagram.
Have you been on Instagram since the day I made you go on it? Have you been back on there since?
Yes.
Posted any stories recently, Ben?
I've forgotten how to post a story, but I'm going to do another one at some point soon.
We'll do a tutorial together after this.
I've accepted follow requests and sent some follow requests myself, and also replied to a message. I had a message on there, and I replied.
Did you?
So
was it from me?
Like no, not from you, from somebody else. I feel like I'm winning at Instagram.
Anyway, please like, subscribe and review this podcast wherever you're listening. And get our emails at indiebusinessclub.substack.com.
And you can buy us a coffee with a £3 contribution at ko-fi.com/Indie Business Club. Every penny of the donations that you send goes to help us keep making the show. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.